Hey folks, Slash here, back on the VintageBeef Fan Server. I apologize right off the bat if I sound a little quiet or weird today. That is because this is my first recording since coming home with my new baby. If you follow me or VB Fan Server on Twitter, you will have seen that my wife and I brought home our third child just recently. And they are all asleep right now. My wife and all three kids are upstairs asleep. It's a little early in the evening. It's actually about 9:30 for me. So I thought I would take the opportunity to try to get something recorded and up on the channel. And try and do it in a way that doesn't wake up the kids or my wife. And most importantly, the baby. So hopefully it won't be too quiet. I will do my best to get the audio levels working well in post. And should be alright. Fingers crossed. Just taking a look. I figured, having been gone for a while, that there would be a prank awaiting me. Let's see, what do we have over here? Here's a sign. Hey Slash, heard that you had a little gift arrive recently, so I thought I would help commemorate. P.S. Tell Mrs. Slash I said congrats too. I would help commemorate the moment with a little something of my own. May he be strong like a tiger, but not so sarcastic. Nihon. P.S. Tell Mrs. Slash I said congrats too. Okay. Alright. If you were not aware, it's a little it's a little baby carriage. Oh, that's adorable. If you were not aware, my baby was born on Nihon's birthday. Oh, this is cute. I like this a lot. Oh, left a crafting table down there. You know what? I've got an inventory full of stuff. Let's go put this away before we tear this down. But yeah, Nihon's birthday is February 11th. And my baby was born just barely on February 11th. It also turns out that Thomas Edison, his birthday is February 11th. So Snowshoe was pointing that out to me. I was talking with a bunch of the guys on Skype while my wife was in labor, and there wasn't really anything for me to do but wait. And Snow made the comment that, what was it? Like, the 11th was Thomas Edison, and the 12th was, like, somebody from the Doobie Brothers, if I remember right. So, he was strongly encouraging that my baby be born on the 11th. So it would be a more prestigious day to share, I guess. Let's refresh that a little bit. And get this going. Do my little OCD inventory management thing. And let's head up and break this down. Oh, man. It's actually been going very, very well with this baby. The first two babies, unfortunately, were fairly cranky. Which is unfortunate, because it wasn't. Oh, I should have brought shears. Oh well. It wasn't. It wasn't something that we really understood at the time, why they were cranky, until after it was kind of too late to do too much about it. But both of the kids had acid reflux issues, as it turned out. And after trial and tribulation and working through it twice, once with each child, we realized that it had to do with dairy in my wife's diet. She is breastfeeding, and apparently the dairy, the proteins, I guess, were going through the breast milk to the kids, and they were not able to process it well, and that was giving them all sorts of digestive issues. So in advance of our third baby being born, like 3 weeks or so before the due date, I think it was, she cut all dairy out of her diet preemptively, and as a result, this baby has been much more pleasant for us. It's been a lot easier adjusting to this one. Plus, it's the third one, it's kind of hard to not learn something from the first two. Third one's a little bit easier. My wife says third babies are the best babies. She's not biased or anything. Oops, there's nothing under there. She is the third child in her family as well, so she's trying to assert herself there a little bit. Let's see if we can't just dig our way in here. This is a very cute little build, Nihon, by the way. Getting a big kick out of it. So yes, now I have 2 boys and a girl. My son is very excited. My daughter is asking for... My oldest son, I should say. I'm not used to thinking that way yet, but my daughter is not so much excited. She is already talking about wanting a sister, and I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that we're not having any more, because every time I make some sort of comment, or my wife makes some sort of comment about what our plans are, our plans derail. So we're just like, however many kids we end up with, the number of kids that we will have, and that's just the way that it works. So it was pretty funny. My son was actually, we were talking to him as we were expecting this child, and we were like, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping for a boy or a girl? And he's like, well, I already have a sister, so it'd be cool to have a little brother. And then as we were talking about, and my daughter wanted, a sister. So as we talked about it a little bit more, he came to realize, we only have the 2 bedrooms for the kids. So the third baby's going to be sharing with somebody. And so he came to the conclusion that what he really wanted was not a boy, but a tomboy. He wanted a girl that would be, eager to play like the boys. And as a result, he would have a playmate that he could roughhouse with and whatever, but he wouldn't have to share his room with her. Man. But the new arrival to our family, his name is Miles. Miles is very much like his older brother so far in many respects. I mean, they look virtually identical. They were both born 3 days before their respective due dates, which was a little freaky. They were both born with, babies are generally born head first. And he was born my oldest was born head first, but with like a hand trying to sneak out at the same time. And Miles was born the same way. He came out with like a hand sticking out ahead of the rest of him. So it's just, and like just to look at them, we were comparing baby pictures, and they look exactly the same at their respective ages as each other. So it's really just freaky how similar the 2 are so far. It'll be interesting to see as Miles gets older what kind of personality he exhibits, because my oldest son, he is a mirror image of me in terms of personality. And it's funny, he looks like me, but he looks like me now. He does not look like I did when I was his age. he looks like I do now, which is just a little bit weird. I don't know, but here we go. I think that's all of it. But he's a carbon copy of me, basically. There's very little very little of his mother in him, personality-wise. And my daughter, she is pretty much a carbon copy of my wife. So, you know, both in terms of looks and personality. So, we have little mini us's, where we've cloned ourselves, more or less. Forgotten how to play the game. I tried left-clicking that button and wondered why it didn't work. So, it's little mini us's that we have so far, and it'll be interesting to see with the third baby. You know, am I going to have another mini me? Or is it going to be, you know, like a miniature, you know, older, or miniature, like, oh, like, not necessarily me, or is it like a combination of the two, or what? You know, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to get here, and it's going to be really fun to find out. Let's drop this stuff off in here. Birch. I think I've got so much birch. Yeah, I don't use any birch at all. That's black wool. Okay, signs go in here. Now, it's pretty nice. I have, from my workplace, I actually have the ability to take this entire week off, and the entire previous week I took off, and then I'm going to be working from home the next 2 weeks after, you know, starting next week. And that's really, really nice. What should I do with this excess birch? You know, I think I've got overflow storage down here I've been using, so we'll throw it in here. So that's really nice. That's a very nice feature of my workplace. And I'm very thankful for that. It'll be interesting to see how much of that time I actually need, because like I said, with the first two, my gosh, it was rough. they were very cranky babies, and there was a lot of time spent trying to keep them happy. You couldn't put them down for any length of time. Basically, if they weren't eating or sleeping, they were screaming, and it just made life very difficult. Wait a second. I think some of my own wool was used here, because there was a hole in that. That's kind of funny. Do I have any wool in here waiting to be put away? I think those are all full. That's why they're hanging out in there. Alright. Well, yes, thank you very much, Nihon, for the little cradle. There is very clever, clever prankish kind of thing. Very cute in its construction. I did actually see it on the overviewer map. I could not resist the temptation to see if something had been done to my base before I actually logged on. So I checked the overviewer map, and I saw it on the overviewer, and it looked very cool there. Oh, hello. I was just attempting to sleep, and Spunkmeyer has foiled my attempt. I do not know who this is. This is a new name to me. I don't know if this is someone who just hasn't been on recently, or if this is a new invitee to the server. But, yeah. Alright, I'm not sure if I'm really going to try to do anything else today. Actually, you know what I think I might do? I think I'm going to get myself equipped to run around the nether a little bit on a quartz run, because I need some quartz for the statue of beef that I want to construct near spawn. So let me drop off a few non-essential items and get myself equipped, and then we will do some quartz hunting, and I will answer a question or two from the Reddit thread. So, see you in a bit. Alright, we are going to head down this way. This is a tunnel heading over to where JRBeer717 is setting up a base. And we're going to look for some nether quartz accessible along this route. There's some up there, but I don't think I want ceiling quartz just yet. And we're going to answer some Reddit questions while we're doing this to finish out the episode. So, let's see here. Our first question. Oh, can I get up on here? That's not the first question. Although if it was, the answer would be yes. Gimme those. And gimme those. Fantastic. Alright, so the first question is going to be from Drew. Drewson of the 43 that we all know and love here on the Matt AK / channel. He has several questions for us. We're going to start with the first one, which was, what was your favorite toy or game when you were growing up? It's an excellent question. And it's a little harder to answer than I expected, because it's been a while. But I would have to say that my primary favorite game of all time, let's see, let's go over there and see if we can't dig down to that. Oops! Ho ho ho, well that would have been really bad right off the bat. My favorite game growing up was probably, or my favorite toy, I should start there. My favorite toy growing up, I would say, was probably Legos. There we are. Thoroughly enjoyed Legos, still do actually. My son occasionally gets Legos as gifts. I can't really get up there too easily. I'm gonna have to like tunnel up this way, I guess. My son occasionally gets Lego sets as gifts, and usually I'm the one tasked with putting them together. Cause he's 6, he could probably handle the instructions, but it's a little bit easier. Ooh, don't freeze up on me now. It's a little bit easier if I put them together for him. So, now I don't know where the darned... Where are you? So I still do enjoy putting the Lego sets together. I also enjoy building my own stuff. I had a fairly elaborate... Oh, I lost that one. And there's a ghast right there about ready to blow my face off. I actually had a fairly elaborate set of Lego toys that I had conceived of on my own. Don't freeze! Oh my gosh, this computer right now is freaking out, and I don't know why. Disuse, maybe, over the past week. But, it was sort of a combination concept between, like, Transformers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where... Woo! Let's see if I can get him. There we are. Fantastic. The toy, what I built down of Lego was relatively simple. I just grabbed a few random parts and built two. They kind of look like planes, and I had two of the thick 2x2 bricks stuck together that I considered to be like the power crystals for the ships, and if they lost those power crystals or whatever, they would revert to a tank, which was just a different configuration of the same parts. So they would transform in that regard, and then I had it worked out that, you know, if I could combine them in a certain way. And I heard you squish. Where are you squishing from? Cannot find you. And then I think I went from there. I built like a flying base for them, which was basically just a big block. It was not very aerodynamic, but you know, through imagination, it had like repulsor lifts or something that it could fly despite its ridiculous shape. And so I had a place where they could dock with that, and it was really elaborate, and it was a lot of fun, and I think I enjoyed it so much because I was able to make it really elaborate, but at the same time it was my creation. I didn't have to follow a model or a kit from anybody else. I was able to come up with my own thing. So yeah, it was probably my favorite toy. I also had Transformers stuff. I had my favorite Transformer, and I don't know really why this is my favorite, but my favorite Transformer of all time, in terms of a toy, was Scattershot. I don't know if you're familiar with the G1 Transformers. Scattershot was one of the Technobots. He was like the leader. And how much do I have on me in terms of... I got plenty of netherrack. We're going to start going up to the ceiling for stuff. But he was the leader of the Technobots, and the Technobots were one of those combiner teams that, 3 or 4 or 5 Transformers would plug together, and you would get some massive build. I'm trying to think what some of the... the big one is... oh wow, my brain is completely failing right now. I cannot think. The Constructicons, right? They had Devastator, is what they could become. So Scattershot was the main body of the Technobots, and he could become, with the others, he could turn into Computron, which was, you only saw Computron like once, I think, in the actual cartoon, unless you have seen the Japanese stuff that followed on from that, and apparently he showed up some more in that. I have not seen that myself. I would like to at some point because it sounds cool, but I have not watched the Japanese continuation of Transformers. But I really liked him. He was like this futuristic looking jet, and I just really liked the way that he transformed. I don't know. I can't exactly put my finger on... I mean, he wasn't as cool as like Optimus Prime or any of the other really well-known Transformers, but for some reason I was really into that one. Let's see, can I get over there? This is dangerous. I will likely fall to my doom at some point during this attempt. So that's favorite toy, and then favorite game. Well, I mean, when I think of game, I think of video game for the most part. I didn't have a whole lot of what I would consider games that were not video games. I mean, I had Electronic Battleship. That was a fun one. That was like, a board game, and it was pretty high tech for its time, because you could actually program in, I forget, it was probably late 80s, early 90s maybe, at the latest. But it came with a booklet. Battleship, if you're not familiar with it, and you probably are, but if you're not, it's, you place ships of varying sizes. They're all 1 by something, so 1 by 2 to 1 by 5 on a grid, and then your opponent does the same, and then you guys take turns calling out coordinates, and those are the shots that you're taking, and the first one to sink all of the other guys' ships by hitting all of their coordinates wins. And this electronic battleship, the game itself kept track of where all the ships were. I am so lost right now. Where the heck is the tunnel that I was following? Oh well, whatever. We'll just go this way, I think. Yeah, I think it's along this way somewhere. But the game itself, actually, there's a computer built into it, and it would keep track of where all of the ships were. And you could program it either by looking up one of, like, I think 100 pre-programmed configurations that were in the manual, and you could just say, I'm going to use configuration 37 or whatever, and it would say, okay, well then I know where these ships are, and go from there. Or you could actually take the time to program in each individual coordinate for each place of your ship. And then once the setup phase was done, each person just took turns putting coordinates into the computer, and the computer told you whether you hit or not. And that was pretty cool. But the problem with it was that every once in a while, user error, for the most part, would cause people to, punch in a hit, and it would register, whoa, that would have been really bad. Punch in a hit, and it would register as a miss, or vice versa, and then you ended up having to play the game manually after that anyway, like you would standard Battleship. So, it had its downfalls. But I really like that as a board game, and then as video games were concerned, my favorite video game, I was actually a really big fan. I don't know if anybody's really familiar with it. For the original Nintendo, there was a game called Super Dodgeball, if I'm remembering right. And the concept behind Super Dodgeball was that you were actually like the United States national dodgeball team. Man, I almost walked right into that too. And the rules were really weird for this. It was like the court was kind of like a tennis court without the net, and then you had you're at a team of 6 players, but 3 of them were in the middle of your side of the tennis court, and then the other 3 were on the borders of the opponent's side of the court. And the object was to just throw the ball at the other team until you beat their guys to death, essentially. They turned into ghosts, actually, and like flew off the screen. So that was an interesting game, and by running and timing your throws at a certain point in time, you could unlock one of your characters to super moves, and they would be harder to block and harder to... Oh, look at this. Somebody bridged over here. Harder to block and harder to evade. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. And then at the end, tell you the age of the game, that at the end, the final battle is against the USSR. Which is especially funny to consider right now because of the Olympics going on in Sochi, Russia. And the men's hockey team recently had a little bit of a, say, recreation or a, I don't know what other word to use than that, but of the Miracle on Ice game between them and Russia. So it was, it's kind of funny to consider the whole final enemy of Super Dodgeball was Russia at the time, or USSR. But anyway, if you beat them, then most of the time, and it seemed like sometimes it didn't trigger, and I don't know what conditions caused that, but most of the time, you would actually end up... Nothing down there. You would end up seeing like this weird purple flash, and you would end up playing a mirror version of your own team. You'd have to play yourself. So it was the computer would take control of a copy of the USA team, and you had to beat yourselves in order to actually beat the game. And that was kind of neat too. I actually kind of like that. So that was a fun video game. What else was I really into in that era? I mean, I owned a lot of the standard Nintendo games. I had Super Mario Brothers 1 through 3. I had... I didn't have the original Legend of Zelda, and I'll get into that more in a future episode. Caleb had asked a question about... I think it was Caleb. Oh no, actually Drew has a question about first experience playing Legend of Zelda. So why don't I get into that right now? Because I think I've answered his other question thoroughly enough, and we'll finish out with this one. Drew's second question is, what was your first experience playing The Legend of Zelda like? My first experience with The Legend of Zelda was with The Adventure of Link, the second game to be released in the franchise. And if you've ever played that one, you know that that's a weird game in the overall Zelda pantheon. Adventure of Link has a sort of... It's top-down partially. Your world exploration is done with a top-down map, like the first game. But then the combat is actually side-scrolly, and it's got RPG-style leveling associated with it as well. So you had to like increase your combat stats through fighting monsters, and it was one of my very first video games for Nintendo, so I was probably like 6, 7 at the oldest trying to play this, and I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't really get it. I couldn't get past the first... I could get to the first dungeon, but I couldn't get past like the monsters at the very beginning of that dungeon because I just wasn't very good at that style of gameplay. So my first experience with The Legend of Zelda actually was not particularly good. It wasn't until playing Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 years upon years later that I really had... Whoa, that was fast. That I really had a positive Zelda experience. And I think that's another question at some point, so we won't go into that in too much detail today. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. It might have actually run a little bit long, and I apologize if that's the case. But thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your patience in the upcoming weeks because I have no idea how often I'm going to be able to record. So you might not see content from me as frequently as I'd like. But hang in there, and once things get a little bit more routine around here, hopefully I'll be able to get some content out to you on a regular basis once again. Well, until next time, have a good one. And that's it. I have nothing else to say. Have a good one.